We are two travel-starved adventurists, and I think it's about time to pull the trigger. We're here to talk about where we would want to go if we could go anywhere. I'm your host, Justin Tyler.
And I'm Kandace Tyler.
Welcome to the Couple Podcast.
I think it would be fun for us to talk about the top 3 places that we're dying to go and see if any of them line up.
Top 3 internationally?
Top 3 international places that we could go. Yeah, because we've never traveled internationally together. The only place I've been out of the country is Mexico, barely. But I don't really count that.
Fair enough. I feel like I always used to have this story about my dad used to have a boat when I was younger, and he had it up in Cleveland. And this is when I was like a little baby. And I always used to joke about the story. Like we went out too far one time. I got turned around by the Coast Guard, and that's the closest I've ever gotten to leaving the country.
Just in the water. Didn't even get to have a good time.
Yeah, so
just floated out too far.
Floated out too far. Yeah, so I mean, what's interesting is, I didn't travel a lot as a kid. I mean, vacation for us, we might once a year go to an amusement park or something, and usually it was one within a driving range. I was in Indiana for most of my childhood, driving here to the Cincinnati area for Kings Island, going to Kentucky Kingdom, Holiday World in Indiana, kind of just close by amusement parks. That was our vacationing. So we didn't really travel a lot. Usually when we were traveling, it was to see family who were in either Ohio or Kentucky. So that was kind of that was really it for us. What was it like for you traveling as a kid?
Mine was much the same. We did a lot of visiting family in Kentucky, Tennessee, some in Indiana. But yeah, it was always, just driving distance. I never rode on a plane as a small child or anything like that. We never did beach vacations or, if we did do some sort of a trip, it was always Gatlinburg or camping. And I'm not downing those memories or anything, but I've always been a really adventurous and curious person.
And that's a very limited scope as far as what you're experiencing. Yeah, I mean, it was we never really a beach for me was either northern Indiana along Lake Michigan, so kind of up in Michigan City area, or kind of visiting up in Cleveland and going to Lake Erie once in a while, which I mean, that's not really, it's not really the best beach out there. I'll give it to Lake Michigan. There are some really beautiful beaches along Lake Michigan. We actually took the kids last year to Holland, Michigan, and kind of Grand Haven, all through that area.
I loved that area.
Yeah, we experienced some really nice beaches up through there.
Yeah.
And I've experienced some on kind of the southern tip too, around Portage, Indiana, Michigan City. There's some really nice beaches along there. So, I mean, that was the closest I ever got to going to the beach when I was a kid. I think the first time that I ever saw the ocean, well, no, I think that I had gotten close enough to the ocean at one point. I don't know, actually, maybe it wasn't. At one point when I think in the 8th grade, when we went to Washington, D.C., I think we did a stop somewhere that was close enough to the ocean where we could kind of see it, but we didn't really go to it.
You could kind of see a speck of the ocean. I think the first time I have a memory of seeing the ocean was I lucked out to have friends that were super rich in middle school, and they would just choose whoever their bestie at the time was. They would take them on beach vacations with them on spring break and during the summer. And luckily my friend chose me 2 years in a row to go to Destin, Florida. And I was like, wow, this is so cool. I just feel like such a cool person to go along on these lavish vacations.
As their extra
yeah,
child.
Their little extra.
Yeah, I was never lucky enough to have a friend like that. Most of my friends were just as poor as I was, or just as white trash as I was. So we might spend our summers finding a good mud hole somewhere to kind of just cool off in.
That sounds like a good time.
Yeah, so I didn't actually see the ocean for the first time until I was I think I was 17 or I had just turned 18. It was around that time. And my mom had taken me down to Florida because like I had like her and my uncle and a few other people. Like my uncle had a timeshare like condo down there, and they would visit down there. And so like I went down there, but even going down to I think it was like Fort Lauderdale area, even going down there, like we didn't really go to the ocean. We spent most of the time like in the like condo like resort space.
That's lame.
It was really lame. We did go to the ocean, but it was like we were there for like a half an hour. So it wasn't really worth anything. I think the first time that I actually got to like be in the ocean and swim in the ocean was when we took the kids to Hilton Head a few years back. So like their first time, well, Evelyn had been to the ocean, but like Milo and Margot's first time experiencing the ocean was kind of the same for me, even though I had technically been there to the ocean before. But I don't know. Basically, what I'm saying is like it was slim pickings for adventuring and getting away. So adventuring for me was more localized to what adventure can I find in the park that's in my town, or out in the woods on my grandparents' property, or kind of those types of adventures. So there's all kinds of places that I've like fantasized about going.
So many places.
So many places.
Honestly, when you're just thinking, like sitting there thinking, and your mind will always go to like a few key places first. For me, one of those is traveling, and like, where can I fantasize about going next? Or what like imaginary trip can I plan in my mind? That's always where my mind is going. That's all I think about
it's
sometimes.
Funny that you're always like planning an imaginary trip, but when it comes down to actually planning the trip, I'm the one doing all of it.
Nah, you like to take charge.
I don't
like
at all. I think we got into this during the It Takes Two episode.
Yeah, you say you don't, but when it comes down to it, it's the Aldi cart syndrome.
What?
The Aldi cart syndrome.
What's the Aldi cart syndrome?
It's whenever we go to Aldi, I'll pick something up and I'll put it in the cart, and I'm being helpful and I'm picking stuff off the shelves, and you immediately rearrange it. You can't just let me put things in the cart. That's because I'm trying
not to smash our food before it gets home. You got to put it in a certain way.
No.
Because as you go throughout the store, you're going to be getting heavier and heavier things, and you need to make sure there's space for it.
Right. But guess what? I have grocery shopped so many times by myself, and I've never smashed the food.
I feel like if I leave the things where you're putting them, our cookies are going to get smashed by the seltzer water.
It's listener. He likes to take charge and complain about it. That's what he likes to do. It's the same for everything else.
So, like Kandace mentioned, we've never really traveled, especially together, outside of the country, or like a real international kind of trip. We have booked an international trip, and here's the irony of this. We spent forever deciding on where we were going to go. We booked this full trip through Ireland for a week. We were supposed to go in May of 2020, and I don't know if you guys remember what happened in 2020, but those plans kind of got all kinds of fucked up. So here we are.
That trip didn't happen.
It did not happen. So here we are 4 years later, and we still have not used our passport at all. There was a few years where things were iffy with international travel and we couldn't go. And then the last couple of years, it's just been, we've been taking the kids on some smaller trips here and there, and we just haven't had the opportunity to travel internationally yet. So we're starting to get to a place where we're talking about doing that soon again, and we're trying to figure out, where is it that we would like to go. So as I just mentioned initially, it was Ireland. That was going to be our first international trip. I think we were flying into Dublin. We were staying in Dublin for a couple of days, and then we had rented a car, and we were going to go out to the western part of Ireland, kind of like along the south, out to the west.
We were going to drive to the west of Ireland after our tour of the Game of Thrones sets and
So,
locations.
we never actually booked that part of it. So like that was going to be a because that's in Belfast,
Yeah.
and that was going to be, we weren't originally planning on going to Belfast, but what we were talking about doing was you can take a train or a bus even from Ireland to Northern Ireland, and it's about a 2-hour ride. It's
Yeah.
not like too terrible, like 2 to 3 hours. We were going to do that on one of the days that we were, just so like we could see the countryside via train. But then also go up to Belfast and kind of just check the city out for a little bit and do the Game of Thrones tour up there. So that was kind of the thought process there. I think if we were to do that again, or like book Ireland again, I think that Belfast would probably at this point be included in the original itinerary.
Yeah.
And just kind of see both. Honestly, I would just love to do all of the UK though, not even just Ireland. I would love to visit.
Hold on.
What?
Hold on. We've come into this to reveal 3 places that we want to prioritize on our list.
Yeah, but
So-
I have a feeling what I'm about to say is probably one that we have shared. So should we just get it out of the way?
Yeah, that's what
Can
we're
this
here
just
to
be an
do.
honorable mention? Do you want to do 3 on top of this one, or do you want to include this as one for each of us?
I just want to do 3 each, period. So if one of them is the same, that's a sign that that's probably the trip that we should take first.
Or it's just the easiest trip, because I mean there is a certain level of comfort in traveling to the UK.
So is that your number one?
It's not my number one choice, but I know that it's one that you also want to do. It's one that we had already technically booked, and I would love to expand. I would love to make it a 2-week ordeal at this point, and not just see Ireland, but see England, see Wales, see Scotland. I think that I would actually be a little bit more Scotland leaning this time around. Yeah, I think that that's one of the top choices. I mean, there's something like I think it's because it's a little bit more familiar to home, and in most cases,
Why do you feel like it's familiar to home? Just the language?
It's the language barrier. I think that there's less of that there. So I think for your first time traveling internationally, I think that that's probably like that's where it's one of the more comfortable places that we could go. But I don't think it's my number one choice. Well, I'll kind of work backwards from here. I think this would be like, so if we're giving out 3, this would actually be number 3 for me.
Number 3 for you?
Yeah.
Okay.
On the top 3 list.
Okay.
Is it on yours too?
It is. It's my number 1 for some of the same reasons.
Oh, it's your number 1?
It is my number 1.
Okay.
Only because there's so much that I want to see in the UK that I've always dreamed of seeing, and just the amount of history that I want to go view. There's a lot that I want to do, and I'm definitely Scotland leaning. If we do the UK, I want to spend probably more of the time that we have allotted in Scotland. But I feel like it's because we're not going to get very many chances to internationally travel without our kids in the next 15 years, probably. So for me, I'm like, okay, I've been wanting to do this trip for years and years. I just need to do it.
I think it would be a good place to see a lot of things in a small area.
Yeah. So
there's a lot of culture. Like you kind of have, you literally have multiple countries kind of crammed into together. one island.
Yeah.
And they're all very, very travel friendly between them. So you can kind of experience a little bit of everything. And there's bits. Yeah. So let's just kind of bounce back and forth on the UK for a little bit, because I feel like that's probably going to be, because it is a common one for us, and we can kind of get into why. It's like some of the more reasons like why we want to and everything. Kind of just bounce back and forth. So you mentioned kind of like the history of it, and like that's the thing for me too. Like there's just thousands of years of history in the UK, and so many different cultures kind of converging into one. It's kind of like, if you think about it, it's a lot like the OG Americas. You have all of these different peoples coming to one place, whether that be through conquest or just kind of naturally migrating.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's kind of crazy, though, because I know I just love seeing history wherever we go. And when we visited Boston and did the Freedom Trail, I remember getting that feeling of, wow, these buildings or this that we're looking at is so old. And that's just baby
That's
baby compared to going like overseas and seeing things like in not just the UK, like every other country that's not the US basically. But just the amount of just old history there just makes us look like such babies over here.
And I love it. Like it's not just like there's the old landscapes. There are structures that are just beyond the age of even anything that we have here in the Americas. There are castles, and I think that that's a huge thing for us is kind of just that like medieval and dark ages kind of like portion of history, even though I think you and I are a little more leaning on like the fantasy side of that, but even like, like the nonfiction, like the real castles, the real stories, the real kings, and just so there's so much of that I would just love to see with my own eyes. But not even just like the history, the man-made history, but just there's so much nature. Why am I spacing the name of the Cliffs of Moher? Is that how it's pronounced? Moher?
Yeah.
That was part of our original itinerary in Ireland, and it's just like these cliffs that are just so old and these rock formations, and it's just I want to see that with my own eyes. I've seen so many videos, I've seen so many photos. And yeah, these are really touristy spots, but that doesn't take away from like what you're seeing and what you're experiencing. And I think that it's something that, like you don't really get to, you can't see that really in a lot of places around the world. It's kind of unique to that place. And I think that it almost like transports you to a different time as well.
I don't even care if things over there are touristy. I want to see all the touristy things.
All the touristy things.
Like, I don't even care if it's basic or whatever. I'll see the stuff that's not touristy too. I just want a mix of both, if that makes sense. Yeah. I want to see all the big things just to say I've seen them, like Big Ben. I want to see, you know what I mean? I want to see the London Bridge. I want to see the Cliffs of Moher. I want to go to the, what is that beer?
Guinness.
The Guinness. I want to see the Guinness.
I just want to have Guinness in an Irish pub. Right. I know that's like the widest, most touristy thing I could possibly say.
And I don't even care.
But I want to do that. I love just the idea of like an actual like English or Irish style pub.
Yeah. I want to have.
There's something so community based around the way that they do that, like social drinking. That like it honestly is just missing in the States, and people don't come together like that because we're so spread out, and it's something that I would love to experience, and I would love to go to a football match. Like like that's something that a few years ago. So that's one thing that I'm happy that, like, I'm not happy that we didn't go when we were going to go, but I don't think that seeing a football match would have been on my itinerary the first time around.
Same, but it is now.
It 100% would be.
Yeah.
That, there's a different sort of kind of athletic fandom over there, and they go nuts. Yeah. And I don't know what teams I'd be seeing, but I'd find me.
I want to see a football match. I want to have some beers and some pubs. I want to see
some sheep.
Oh, I want to see so many sheep.
Walking around on some hillsides.
I want to see some castles.
Oh, yeah.
I want to have a dram while looking at some castles. I want to
wear a skirt.
Yeah. I want to look at your skirt.
You want to look up my skirt? Are you supposed to wear underwear with the kilt?
That's the great mystery.
Oh, well, I guess we'll find out. And if we have a little Marilyn Monroe situation with the wind, Sorry.
Whoops. So you brought up COVID a minute ago. I was really heartbroken when our Ireland trip was canceled. And I think a lot of people turned to social media during that year just because, like, what the fuck else were we going to do? So everyone, I don't know. I feel like TikTok was getting bigger at that time. There was just a lot of people turning to social media for community, I think, during that time. And I started following just a few people on social media, more UK-based people, mostly because one of them is a tour guide that does a lot of Scotland tours. And the way I started following them, he does a lot of Outlander tours. So that's how I found the page. Was he basically takes you to all the big, like, Outlander film spots, like the Lollybroch home, the Inverness town, like, and just a lot of different, where the spot where they have the standing stones, all of that. So there's just a lot of places throughout this series that they visit on this tour. And it was kind of cool because during that time, I actually connected with that tour group, and they were really, really kind. And they were like, oh, if you ever like do get to international travel after all of this mess is over, like, you'll have to come join one of our tours. And I was like, that was so cool and personable. And you definitely made a fan. And if we ever go out to the Scotland portion of our trip, we're booking that tour and we're going to do the Outlander tour. That's a huge bucket list thing for me.
Really,
and
you're trying to find Craignadoon.
Craignadoon.
You're trying to go through the standing stones into the past so you can find yourself a Scottish lad.
No, I just want to
take you home to Lollybroch.
I'm envisioning just having like a little thing of whiskey in my hand and just standing outside, and it probably feels fucking cold because it's Scotland, but I don't even care. And I'm just looking at some beautiful countryside and maybe even like a castle or a standing stone in the distance, and just thinking, what is life? This is so cool. That's my bucket list. And I know you're rolling your eyes at me because you're like, oh my God.
No, I was just singing What is Life in the tune of What is Love in my head. What is life?
Still, I feel like that portion of our trip, you would be like, what have I gotten myself into?
Oh no, you know that I would fucking love it. As long as I don't end up in the 1700s, I'm good. I'm good.
Oh, I hope we do.
What if I traveled back and you were unable to?
How
disappointed would you be?
I would be so pissed because not everybody can travel back in time in that book or in that series. You either have it or you don't. And if it were you, I would be so pissed. I would be so mad.
It turns out our kids also inherited that ability from me, and you can't go with us.
Right? I mean, that's like half the plot of that series.
I mean, I barely want to travel with our kids like in space. I don't think that I would want to travel with our kids in time. So
you don't want to so bringing that up, like, I would love to take our kids on one of these big trips, but
we'll come back to that.
Yeah.
I think that at the end, after we've discussed what the places are, maybe we could discuss which one would be the most likely to take the kids. Like, okay, we'll do that.
So we're agreeing.
I think the UK though is. I think that's for us. I think that there's going to be a lot of drinking.
There will be a lot of drinking only because we can't not.
I'm trying to train my liver for this trip now, so I'm trying to let it heal so that I can do optimal damage. I just
want to. Yeah, I want to do all the drinking in the pubs and in the drams and the castles and the walking and the sheep and the footballs and the. Am I summing this trip up? Yeah. Okay, does that sound good?
So, and there's it's not just the history either. And I hit on, like, I would love to see a football match in the UK. I would also like to see a concert in the UK.
Oh, for sure.
The UK it's honestly kind of at the roots of so much of just like punk rock history. And even now there are so many great metal bands that come out of the UK. And I would love to see one of those UK bands in their home country.
So we could see a concert in London.
Or somewhere.
And then travel up to Scotland. I don't know. I don't think we're going to get 2 weeks on our next trip.
This is what I would love to
nice.
do. I think I would love to kind of zigzag from London to Manchester to Cardiff, Wales, up to Edinburgh, up to Glasgow, over to Belfast, down to Dublin, back to London.
You skipped Inverness, and that's
too far north. I don't know. I don't think that we would be able to make it out there.
That's part of our Outlander tour. That's mandatory.
Well, I mean, there's other cities that I would also like to visit that I skipped out there, but I think that probably makes the most sense as far as like ease of travel and being able to see as much as we could in like a week and a half, or if we get 2 weeks, I don't know.
There's no way I'm going all the way to fucking Scotland and not doing my Outlander tour.
Then we're going to have to do a second trip that's Scotland only, because we're talking about the entirety of the UK.
I would cry if we went all the way out there and you didn't let me do that.
Would you go to Scotland Yard and get up in the face of the guards and be like, huh, and just try to get a reaction out of them?
No, I wouldn't do that, but I would like to go and just look at it.
I just want to do all the like the stupid touristy things. Like, I don't even care. Like, that's some place I would be okay with just looking like a dumbass American.
Yeah, I'm sure that we will look like that because we are Americans and we're going to be a little bit out of place.
Yeah, well, that's why you travel with a Canadian patch on your bag.
Nah.
They hate them less.
That's not true.
All right, well, that
was our first one.
That was both. Yeah, well, that was my third. It was your first. It was your number one, my number three. So we're going to kind of meet in the middle somewhere here. Do you want to go next?
Sure. This one, mine aren't ranked, if that makes sense. They're all even to me, really. Greece is a big one that I would like to go do.
Greece or the Mediterranean in general?
I mean, in general, the Mediterranean would be amazing. If anyone said, do you want to go anywhere over here, I would be like, hell yeah.
Specifically Greece.
I'm choosing Greece just because the city portion of it as well. Just I've always wanted to see Greece's cityscapes against the water. Like that's one of the most beautiful views to me that I've seen, like through photos and video.
There are a lot of kind of port cities in the Mediterranean Sea. That it would be fun to kind of like go from port to port. There's actually, if you ever wanted to do a cruise, there is a cruise company. I'm trying to spacingly. I feel like it was called like Viking Cruises or something like that. They're like they operate in the Mediterranean. That like they basically go from port to port, and I think that would be a fun way to kind of like see a lot of that from the water, and then be able to come like up into the city.
In this trip. There's different vibes to different trips. This would be a very different vibe from the UK trip. The UK trip would be, gallivanting everywhere, nonstop walking, nonstop, just like going place to place. I feel like this trip would be it would be an elevated beach experience for me. It would be like, okay, I'm living my best life. I'm in this beautiful sun. We're probably on a boat somewhere. We're eating delicious food.
So
food is a big one.
That's I think what's at the center. So for me, I would love to go like visit like really just any Mediterranean city. I purposefully kept this off of my list because I knew that you were going to pick it, and I didn't want to have 2 repeats because that would be boring. But I would love to see. I honestly I want to go all around the Mediterranean, not just like the Greece and like Italy of it, but I want to see on the southern portion. I want to go to Morocco. I want to go to Algiers. I want to go to like all of these like kind of northern African countries in the Mediterranean. I want to see and it sucks because I don't think that this is going to happen anytime soon with just the political landscape. Right. But I would love to go to Jerusalem. I would love to go to Egypt. I want to go I really would love to visit just all around the Mediterranean. And for me, what's at the center of most of that is food.
Food. Yes.
Food. I love Mediterranean food so fucking much. and there's so many different styles of Mediterranean food, and they all kind of like they share similarities, but they're all so unique. And I want to just eat my way through the Mediterranean Sea.
I think just the food on that trip would be so, so good. Like the UK, I'm excited for the actual like experience. I don't think that I'm going to walk away being like, wow, that was the best fucking food I've ever had.
Hey, you'd be surprised. I know, especially in Ireland, the food culture is on the rise. So it's not just your shepherd's pie and fish and chips and all, like they're
I mean, I know they have other types of food. I'm just saying like the culturally
okay
is what I'm saying. Like I feel like the UK is like similar to the US with their food. Like we have all different types of food here, and we have some delicious food. We have some shitty food.
But there's not a lot that's uniquely American.
Right. It's not
other than burgers and hot dogs.
Hamburgers, hot dogs. Yeah. But I feel like, if we were to go through like the Mediterranean area, just the food would be phenomenal.
Yeah. So what else about the Mediterranean, or like Greece specifically, would you be wanting to do?
It feels very romantic to me.
Feels very romantic.
Yeah.
I can see. Yeah.
I feel like it would be a very romantic trip, like just for me and you to go on.
Feels like a good trip to get mugged on too.
Yeah, maybe.
That's one where you really don't. I think you don't want to stand out as a tourist as much as possible.
But I mean, we definitely would. It doesn't.
We're both olive skinned. We could pass until they start talking to us, and then we'd be like, eh.
You'd be like, let me tell you about that mud hole I was in that one summer,
1992.
Yeah. So that was my second one. It was kind of straightforward, and I'm sure that there's a lot of history that I love to see there as well. It's just that trip would be a different. There would be a different purpose to that trip. It would be relaxing. It would be delicious. It would be just, I feel like we would feel like pretty rejuvenated after that trip. But what's your second one?
So number 2 for me, and it's again, I haven't really pinned this down to like a specific place. It's kind of a region.
Oh, I gotcha. I feel like I'm hoping we're not going to have another repeat. Go ahead.
So I would really love to go to the Benelux region, which would be Belgium, Netherlands, and Luxembourg, and then Germany.
Yeah. So, okay.
So just that whole area, like the kind of the Frankish speaking area, a lot of German speaking, a lot of Dutch speaking areas in there. Just that whole area. There's so much cool. Like I love the architecture.
Yeah.
I love like there's just things that are so unique to those spaces. So like landscapes that are so unique. We took the kids to Holland, Michigan last year, and like it's the most like American version of like idea of like what Holland is. But like I don't know, like I would love to see like just kind of the real thing, like
the real
in
thing.
The spring, like all the tulips, all the like I think it'd be cool to see that. But for me, so this is actually more like, I know we talked about the UK as being kind of a drinking trip, but I think that going to this region for me would actually be more of a beer trip than even the UK.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I want to try I want all the German beers. And there's so much like the chocolates, the food, like there's so many
that
things.
would be another wonderful food trip.
Oh, yes. But like, there's also all of these little, like even the smaller towns and villages all over this region, they have so many festivals all the time.
Yeah.
I worked for a company, back when we first started this podcast 2 years ago this weekend. Actually,
yeah, it was Father's Day.
I guess you're hearing this a couple weeks after Father's Day because we actually got ahead with our recording for once. But yeah, 2 years ago, like the company I used to work for, we were the parent company for another smaller company that was based out of the Netherlands, and I had a coworker that I worked with daily that was in Amsterdam kind of area, and they seemed like they were just always doing awesome things. And I would love to go. I think, it's tough. Like, I don't know if I'd want to go in the spring to see like the tulips and everything, and like just all the like the flowers and like landscaping around there, or if I would want to go in the fall and like visit something like Oktoberfest,
Oh, that
like a
would be
real
so
Oktoberfest.
fun.
Like, listeners, we're in the Cincinnati area. Oktoberfest is really like, this is the largest non-German celebration of Oktoberfest in the world.
Yeah.
So it's a big deal around here. But I would love to go to Germany.
There's
or
a
even
lot
to like,
of German descendants over here.
Oh yeah. But yeah, there's I don't know. Like, there's just something that's always pulled me to that area. And I think that especially just my love for history. I mean, they have their own unique history too, but a lot of like more recent history. And I know that there's a lot in the region just around World War II and building back up the region after, like, post World War II. And there's just so much that I would love to visit. And like, you think of the more traditional things and like places like Amsterdam, like a lot of people would travel there because you can smoke openly there. Like, we can do that in most places in the United States now. So that's not even like,
that's not
I'm not
part
even
of
saying
it.
that that's what I want to go for, but there's so much great music that comes out of that area. There's so many great beers. There's so like all these things that I like. I love history. I love drinking. That makes me sound a little bit like an alcoholic, but I love me some beer. And I just love, like, I don't know. I love just soaking in that culture. And I think that that's definitely like, that would be like kind of like my number 2 choice would be to visit this region and again, kind of immerse myself in I'm not even saying like big cities. So like, I think that for the UK, we'd be visiting some of the major cities. I want to get out and see like some of the smaller like towns and villages, and because like there's some really cool like just small towns all over, and they like, again, they just have these festivals going on, seems like most of the time. And I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of cool shit that we could do.
I completely agree with that choice. And my third,
is this a repeat?
No, so not exactly. But it's close by and in. My third choice was, I would love to visit the remote countryside near, just like anywhere near the Swiss Alps.
Okay.
So it's close-ish.
But you're talking about like, so you talked about like Greece and the Mediterranean. This is like, when you think of like France and Italy and like all of these places, this is the northern portion of these areas where you have the Swiss Alps, and it kind of spans that entire region. And these are very old mountains.
Yeah.
Like, there's some really, really, really beautiful scenery.
Beautiful scenery. I see so many videos and just like drone footage videos of just beautiful spots over there with these like crystal clear blue waters that just run off the mountains, and they're just surrounded by these like adorable little towns that look like they've been there for hundreds of years. Because they have.
Yeah, they have.
And the architecture of those little villages just looks like the little house in like Snow White and the Seven Dwarves, like just like adorable little, like, do you know what I mean? Yeah. Like just like awesome little, I don't know. I love it. I think I love the architecture. But I agree with like all of the regions that you were talking about with your choice too. Like, just the architecture alone is so cool to look at over there. It's so unique to like not what we're used to seeing, and join that with the beautiful landscapes and like the mountains and all of that. And I'm there. That would be so cool.
So that's your number 1?
No, it's not my number 1 choice. It's just my third spot.
Sorry. That's you and I are working backwards from each other. I keep forgetting that. So that's your third.
No, I didn't really rank mine.
Oh, okay.
Mine are just, mine are ranked. So mine aren't ranked.
UK to Benelux / Germany / my next choice.
Okay. So your next choice is your number 1.
This is my number 1.
Okay.
And I think it has always been my number one. My number one choice, like the place that I would most love to travel in the entire world, would be Japan.
I knew it. I knew you were going to say that.
You
I
knew
knew
it.
it.
I've just always been I've always been so obsessed with Japanese culture. Like from the time that I was a kid, just not even just like anime, but like Japanese history. There's just something so fucking cool about the idea of, you know, like the samurai and fucking shinobi and like ninjas and like there's just so much cool shit there. But just also like these, it's so crazy to like look at Japanese culture and just how alien it can feel, like not just because like they speak a different language, but it really is, they live their lives in a very different way from us. And I think that it would be, if you're looking for an immersive experience where you really have to throw yourself into like just something completely foreign, that's the way to do it.
I have to forever, ever since we watched that show recently.
Which one? Shogun?
Yes. Every time you say Japan, I now have to say the Japans.
The Japans. The reasons that I will. So I even took Japanese in high school. Like that was like my foreign language in school. Because like I knew one day I wanted to go there. I do speak a little Nihongo, but I'm very rusty, and it has been over a decade now since I've actively like practiced. So I really want to like in anticipation, I want to get Margot more into it, and I kind of want to like start having small conversational Japanese like bits with her. And
so you think that would be a good kids trip? Is that what you're saying?
I don't know if it would be a good like all of our kids full family, but I would love it because like Margot also loves a lot about Japanese culture. And I think that I would at the very least, maybe as she gets a little older, I would love to take her to Japan.
I think some one-on-one trips with our kids would be great. I know specifically with Evelyn, I had promised her years back, and now it's getting ever closer now. I had promised her that when she graduated high school, that I would take her on an awesome like international trip, like just me and her.
And where was it that she was wanting to go?
So when she was really, really little, she would always say Paris, because I feel like when you're really little, that's one of the main places internationally that kids know, because it's like every little kid knows about Paris and the Eiffel Tower, basically. It's like, I think she was watching some cartoon that was based out of Paris, France. So that was really the only other place that she knew.
Ladybug.
Yeah, Ladybug.
A Japanese animated from Toei Animation.
Yeah.
Made in France. Yeah.
So yeah, she had said that, but now she changes her mind all the time, and she'll tell me a new place like all the time.
I feel like after watching Daryl Dixon with her, I feel like France's back up there, especially after her discovery. We watched As Above, So Below, and I think that the catacombs are another thing that she's like,
yeah.
And then we watched a lot of French like things that took place in Paris and France recently. We also watched The Hunchback of Notre Dame with the kids for the first time.
Yeah, they had never seen it, and they were like, "What the hell?" But yeah, I think as her graduation approaches, I'm sure she'll change her mind so many more times. But that is something that I want to do. So I think it would be great if you did some one-on-one trips, and
I would love to go with you as well.
Yeah.
Maybe that could be like a later in life, me and you, like when we don't have the kids, something that we can take our time with
when we're old.
Because here's the thing, going to Japan, I don't just, there's no like one city that I want to visit. I want to see the entire country by train, as much of it as by train as possible. But just going from village to village, going from city to city, like, because even their cities, like you go from somewhere like Kyoto to like Tokyo, like it's so different. And there's so like the culture, like it varies from place to place. Again, a lot of World War II history, a lot of just history, old history in general. But like, I would love I would love to visit Nagasaki and Hiroshima. I would love to go to Okinawa. I would love to like all these places. And even outside of like the historical side of it and like the more like quirky Japanese anime culture of it, I would love to go to Aokigahara Forest at Mount Fuji, the haunted forest at the base of Mount Fuji.
That would be so haunting.
So like, I feel like it would just feel so surreal.
Yeah.
To visit there and just pay your respect to the spirits that reside there, if you believe in that sort of thing. But even if you don't, just being like the atmosphere of that and being there, I think that would be just so surreal. It's also just a beautiful country. I think that would be an early spring to late spring trip for me, mostly because I would want to see the sakura, the cherry blossoms. So that would be an early spring, like very early spring, to get that on time. But I don't know, something like, I feel like that would be a nice fall trip too.
Maybe instead of doing a trip that's comfortable the first time, we should just say fuck it and make Japan our first international travel.
Oh, man, that's really throwing yourself into the deep end though. I have friends who like, I have a buddy that I used to work with, who just recently went to Japan, and he spent I think 16 days.
Wow.
In Japan. If I'm not mistaken. And, he doesn't speak a word of Japanese. He was just kind of like figuring it out as he was going. And like, he had a blast. So, I've had a long conversation with him about that trip. And I was just like, dude, like, there's no reason that we couldn't do this. I think that I think a lot of it is we put pressure on ourselves because we've never traveled internationally. We put a lot of pressure on ourselves to do so. I don't know. I think that part of it is just fear because it's something we've never done before. I think if we just threw ourselves into it and did it, that's why partly, for me, the UK is no longer number one. Like, that was going to be our first trip, mostly because of the kind of just the ease and familiarity of it. But there's a part of me that just wants to like, all right, let's just rip the Band-Aid off, go full force into something that is completely alien to us. And see how we do. And once we've accomplished that and done that, I don't think anything else is going to scare us. Yeah,
that's true. Also, with all of the just like translation tools that there are now, there's really no reason to be super nervous about that.
I mean, there's great translation apps for spoken, but you can also just use Google Lens and Google Translate. Like, you can like literally point your camera at any sign and it will translate within like 98% accuracy.
I've gotten really familiar with that at my work. I'll have people come in all of the time that speak zero English, and we have no problems communicating because they can use those tools. It's really cool. So I think it's never been easier. It's never been easier to travel. And another thing is, like, you can always find English speaking people in most of the world. I know that it's not the most spoken language, but as far as like traveling from place to place, I would say it's probably the most like common language, and like the chances of finding somebody who speaks it in every country in the world. Yeah. Are greater. Yeah. Than others. Yeah. But yeah, for me, it was the UK, Benelux / Germany, and Japan. And mine was UK, Greece / I'll say Greece / Mediterranean area, and for sure the Swiss Alps. You want to go skiing? I would love to try it. You would love to try it? Yeah, I wouldn't be any good. What is it? Pizza, hot dog. Pizza, hot dog. To slow down and speed up, you got to point your toes in, make pizza. Makes you go faster. Oh gosh, I'm stressed already. Hot dog slows you down. I'm stressed thinking about it. I fell. You fell. You're tumbling down the mountain now. I forgot which one was the hot dog. Maybe we'll try it. Maybe we'll go to what is it? Perfect North. Here I was terrible there too. I've been there before. We'll try the Bunny Hill there first. I have several friends who've taken me there, and I was never skiing there, to be fair. I've never skied. It was always snowboarding, and I was freaking awful at that. Like the worst that you can imagine.
Well, as we're winding down, I have 3 bonus questions for you. And
Okay.
feel free to ask them to me as well, or maybe I'll just jump in and answer. I don't know. So bonus question number 1. Where's the last place in the world that you would want to visit?
Oh, shit. There's so many. You just put me on the spot, though.
I know. Take a moment if you need to. But I guess while you're thinking, for me, it's funny because I was so fascinated with the rainforest when I was a kid, and I love nature. I love the animals. But there is no part of me as an adult just knowing all the fucking things that are in the rainforest that can and will kill you. I don't want to go there. Not only that, but like some of the people that live around the areas where the rainforest like are some of the most dangerous drug dealers and cartels in the world.
So, yeah, right before you said that, my mind immediately jumped to like areas in and around like Panama. There's so many dangerous people over there, and I forget exactly where it is, like in the South American region, but just the amount of tourist kidnappings and murders over there. And plus there's the dangers of like the forests and the jungle, I guess you would call it. That probably is like the least place that I would want to go. That just sounds like a death trap to me. But I'm exactly, I feel like we're very similar in like our travel tastes. Like I also, as a kid, wanted to go to the rainforest. Like I was just like the rainforest.
I love animals so much. And think of all the cool fucking frogs, the witchy frogs.
The frogs, the poison dart witchy frogs.
That would kill you. I mean, you'd look at them, they'd be pretty, but then they would fucking kill you.
Yeah. But I just, as an adult, I'm like, the rainforest sounds fucking terrible. I'm not going there.
I don't even like the mosquitoes here in Ohio. I'm not going into the fucking rainforest.
I don't want those vampires on me. Yeah, just all of that sounds terrible. I'm trying to think where else. Just probably like anywhere in Alabama.
Oh, domestic? I was thinking like, I mean, as cool as like it would from a historical standpoint, visiting somewhere like Russia, there's like 90% of Russia I would not even want to go near.
Right.
And also fuck Russia.
Fuck Russia right now.
The KGB is probably listening to this podcast right now, and we just put a target on our home.
Anywhere really that's just like in a terrible war right now. I don't want to go. Yeah. And Alabama.
And Alabama. Tell me why Alabama?
I don't know. I just feel like that's where that like Florida. Oh no, that's Florida and Georgia. I just brought up I was singing like the Florida Georgia line song. I was like, I feel like that sounds very Alabama, but no, I've never heard a lot of good things about Alabama in the US, and it just on top of it just seeming hot.
Yeah, I can get that.
And terrible.
I can see that. I'm sure that there are beautiful places in Alabama, and I'm sure that like if we scratch off 90% of our list, maybe I'll go to Alabama at some point in my life. I'm sure that I will end up in Alabama at some point in my life, whether I'm driving through or going somewhere for like work or I'm sure that I will end up there. But it's not a destination that I would choose.
That's more of like a gas station stop.
Yeah. Hopefully they have a Buc-ee's.
They probably do. Where are some of more like places that you would just hate to go?
Oh, other places that I would hate to go. Well, once we get out of Ohio, I don't plan on coming back.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's the truth bomb right there.
Wow.
No, Ohio is fine. I just, my allergies living here, it fucks me up.
You'll feel shitty anywhere you go.
Yeah. No, I don't. I feel great. You're the one that feels shitty. So listeners here, anytime that we travel, so we haven't traveled internationally, but we've traveled domestically quite a bit. And anywhere that we go, I can suddenly breathe and I feel so amazing. And I'm like, oh yeah, I just want to be outdoors all the time. I feel so good. Your head. And then Kandace is over here like, I can't poop.
Yeah, I can never poop. There's always going to be someone in your group who can't poop.
And it's
poops too much.
It's always Kandace.
you're the one that poops too much and I can't poop.
Other places, though, that I wouldn't want to visit, as interesting as it would be to see, and also some of the food in the region as well, I feel like there's a good chunk of the just Middle Eastern countries that if there's no reason for me to go there, I am not touching that. It's not that I'm against going to these places. I just think that like there's a lot that needs to happen. There's a lot that needs to progress in these mostly politically in these countries before in my lifetime before I'm going to feel comfortable visiting.
There's a lot of countries like that everywhere. Like just so many, not,
Hell, the US is borderline anymore.
Alabama.
So
there's
if
there's
you
one
were offended
everywhere.
by anything that we said here, like, fuck it. US sucks too.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many spots everywhere in the world that suck. We're not singling any one.
This is a conversation
out.
about the places we would like to visit to get away from the shit, not go deeper into the shit.
Yeah. Can I add like one bonus that I would like to go to? And you kind of touched on this earlier, very briefly. Egypt was always a big one too. Just growing up as a kid.
Yeah, again, the Mediterranean in general, but there's something about Egypt that's special.
It's the history of it all. Just romanticizing, seeing like, oh, the pyramids and all of the cool like
tourists.
All the touristy things, and riding on like a 2-humped camel. And then in the
finding
desert.
A staff that you have to line up perfectly with the sun to reveal a tomb with a treasure, and just all of that.
And just living my best
Indiana
mummy
Jones.
life.
Oh, Mummy.
Oh yeah, I would be channeling Rachel Weisz from The Mummy the whole time. Just don't mind my outfits.
Is that who you named Evelyn after?
It's a 50-50. I kind of like to slip that in as a fun one, but also it was my great grandmother's name, so it's a bonus. That would be me in Egypt, just dressing up as Rachel Weisz from The Mummy.
Well, did you know that a 2-humped camel takes a 2-hump to poop?
I'll never know until we go. So
we've read, I think, one too many times poop books.
The poop book
with our kids. Everybody poops.
Yep.
So all right, let's start to wrap this up a little bit. I had 2 more bonus questions.
Oh, okay.
So we spent that long on just the places that we don't want to go. So we've got some opinions there. So these ones will probably go a little bit quicker because the next one is, where would you love to go next domestically within the United States? Or surround it, like so bordering the United States. I would accept that as well.
The next stateside trip I want to do would be go out towards anywhere along the Pacific Northwest. So Oregon, Washington.
I would say
even Northern California area.
Well, I was going to say even going up into like Vancouver and Canada, and like seeing like Banff National Park and like out that way too. Like I would love that entire region. I love mountains. Mountains are my favorite thing to see when traveling, and seeing just kind of like getting up into that area, like those, like the Northern Rockies up there.
That would be a great trip.
I've been lucky enough to, I did drive out to Portland, Oregon, but it's not enough of that area. Like I would love to go to Seattle, Washington, and I would like to see something a little more coastal in the Pacific Northwest. I would love to travel to Northern California and see the redwoods and kind of some of that area too. I know a couple years ago we were actually talking about doing, there's a highway that kind of just goes right down the coast from pretty much from Vancouver. I mean, you can keep taking it all the way up into Alaska if you go far enough, but I think it'd be fun to go from like Vancouver down to San Francisco along the ocean, just kind of like road trip. I think that'd be a good road trip spot.
That would be a really pretty road trip.
Oh yeah. And then just stop in on some of the major areas around in there. And like I said, there's beaches, there's mountains, there's forests, there's cities, pretty much everything that you would want. I would love that trip as well. So that was going to be my answer too.
Oh,
but I'll give a little like bonus one since you answered that, and we just think the same, I think. So it's like a secondary domestic place that I would like to travel to in the near future. We've done Boston before, but I would like to see more of New England in the fall.
In the fall.
And that's actually something, depending on, I don't know like how big of a vacation we're going to end up taking this summer. And if we don't take a big one this summer, I'm pushing for we've never done a fall trip somewhere, mostly because the kids are in school. But I'm okay with, like, even if we don't take a full week, I'm okay with like taking them out of school for a couple of days and kind of have it overlap with a long weekend at some point to take them somewhere. Like, I would love to.
They do have a fall break.
Yeah.
This year. So
I want to go on spooky season up to New England, though. I want to go to Salem. I want to go to Connecticut. I want to do all the spooky things up in New England.
That would be such a cool trip with them. I think they would love to see some of that.
See some witchy frogs.
Yeah.
See some. Oh yeah. Yeah. So
Salem would be so cool.
So the final question that I have, if you've got more, we'll keep this going as long as you want to. I don't give a shit. But the final question that I had was, whether it be domestic or internationally, but since the bulk of this conversation has been about international trips and traveling to different parts of the world, where would you most like to go with the kids, traveling as a family, not as one kid individually, but as a family? Where would you like to go?
That's a good question. So I'm trying to put myself in their shoes right now to see what they would love the most. And I'm trying to think of all the places that we mentioned. And I'm almost thinking that out of all the places that we said that we'd love to go, that they may enjoy one of the really immersive places like Japan the most. But I don't know if I'm comfortable, like my first trip, taking them somewhere internationally, going somewhere that difficult, just navigating all of that with them. It would probably be fine, but just the fears of it all, like we were talking about. Honestly, I don't know. I'm so torn because their ages. I'm afraid that we would get them somewhere and be so excited about it, and that they wouldn't appreciate it, or they would be like, my legs hurt, and I would just be pissed.
I think that they're finally out of that age where we have to worry so much about them like complaining about their legs hurting. Milo maybe a little bit, but as long as there's some sweets.
As
long as, like, I think that Milo is pretty much covered. For Margot, find her some music. Find her some food. I think she's good. For Evelyn, I think that she's probably the most adventurous out of them right now. Like, she's just at that age where she's really wanting to see things that she's never seen before. We've only ever taken her to the beach, Gatlinburg, or like places just kind of here in the Midwest. She's never been outside of that. She wants so badly to see mountains,
so
like
bad.
Big mountains.
Yeah.
So that's another thing that we're talking about potentially doing with the kids domestically, is taking them out west, maybe to Colorado or something. Kandace and I did that a couple years ago, and it was a great time. We have friends that live out that way. It would be nice to visit them, so maybe that would be an easy trip to take with the kids. But I think that as far as international with our kids, I think the sweet spot would be somewhere in like one of the Scandinavian countries. Because you have a little bit of all of those things that the kids would want to do and would enjoy, coupled up into just like some of the friendliest countries.
I didn't even think about that. And I don't know why Sweden wasn't on my list now that I think about it. Me and the kids, actually, we religiously watch YouTube creator Jona Yenten on YouTube. She's a Swedish vlogger. Her videos are just really relaxing. There's no other word I can use to describe it. She doesn't do anything really wild in her videos. It's just her location. She lives in a really small little village in northern Sweden, and her life is just so more slowed down and simple than ours is, I feel like, over here. So watching her life is just really relaxing. She videos herself just doing all her normal, things, and she's really integrated with the nature. And the kids remark all the time how much they love like the forests and the mountains and all of the waters over there. So I think that would actually be a really great spot to take the kids.
Yeah, and not even just Sweden, but like I love uh Maddie on YouTube, Maddie Hapoja
In
HAA.
Finland.
Yes, so he will take during the summertime for several months, he'll take his family back to Finland where he's from, and they just stay there. They find like this like really cool like cabin or like house that's like kind of removed from everything, and they just stay there, and he works remotely for several months of the year. And he's there with his family right now back in Finland, and it's just like they always find this like really amazing spot like on water somehow.
Yeah.
And it just looks so amazing. So like I would love Sweden. I would love Finland. I would love Norway. Honestly, like I'd be good with Denmark. I'd be good with Iceland.
I don't know how that skipped our list.
Oh, it's not like, it's definitely a place that I would love to go to. It's just not like when we're talking top 3, it just barely, I think I was leaning more into places that I want to go with you specifically. That's somewhere though that I would love to go with the kids.
Yeah. I think that would be a great spot to take the kids. Just the nature. Everyone does seem very friendly over there. I don't know why, but yeah, that would be great. I'm kind of torn because deep down, I do want to take the kids on all of our trips, even if their legs do hurt, whatever. I just want to
You'll appreciate this when you're older.
Yeah, I want to be able to show them amazing times that, you and I never got to have as kids. I think that would be really cool for them to look back on.
And it is a balancing act too, because like you just said, like you and I, we didn't get to take trips like this as kids, and we're struggling to be able to get out and do this as an adult even. So, every once in a while we do get to take a trip though, and we see something that just, it changes us in some way fundamentally. And imagine being a little kid and getting to experience that. Most people that we know, when they vacation with their kids, it's to a beach town. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like, that's fine. Like, those are fun trips too. We also do those trips with our kids. Historically, we have done those trips with our kids. But I'm at a spot, especially with Evelyn and Margot right now, where I want to blow their minds. I want to take them somewhere that they will never forget.
Yeah.
And I want it to have like a profound impact on them that they carry with them as they complete like their development. And I want them to see something I haven't even seen in my life.
Yeah, I mostly want them to see, I want them to feel small, but not in a bad way. I want them to see that there's way more than what we are here.
It's humbling.
Mm-hmm.
I think it kind of opens you up to the possibilities of opportunities that we have in this world. I also think that it makes you feel like the things that you're afraid to do are less scary because of how small. I don't want to tell our kids that they're insignificant in the grand scheme of things, but when you feel that way, like everything else, like there's something greater out there, it makes some of your worries seem less, I don't know, like less big.
Yeah. And it lets you know too that not everything is about you. There's so much going on in the world, and it's humbling. It gives perspective. And that's the greatest part about traveling. There's so many people that aren't like you.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
I want that for them. And I think that them experiencing that at a younger age and realizing that at a younger age than we have, I think that puts them ahead and really sets them up as they're going into, like, Evelyn's got a few more years before she's in high school. And that really is the age where you start to, like, your final form starts to kind of take shape as far as who you are at your core. Which, I mean, I guess you develop that when you're younger, but like, as far as like the thing that you want to do with your life, whether it be work or family or lifestyle, that's where it really starts to set in and take shape more. And you kind of start to fall down a path that's hard to pivot from.
Yeah.
And I want them to go into those years just already kind of knowing like some of these things that we didn't figure out until we were adults and not feel as scared about it and be ready.
Let's do it.
So you're saying the next trip we're taking our kids, or fuck no, we're going somewhere, just us here soon, and we'll figure out the kid trip.
I kind of mean, let's do it all in general. But
Let's do it all. Let's just do it all. That's our homework this time, is let's just do it all.
But in the next year, we will do our first international trip together. That's my goal.
It's not even going to be, don't even say within the next year. Say within the next 6 months.
Okay. I'll say within the next 6 months, we will do our first
before the end of
international
2024.
Deal. And then after we do it, we'll report back and we'll do an episode.
We're going to have to find somewhere warm to go if it's later in the year. So we might be visiting something in the Southern Hemisphere, which we didn't talk about anything positively in the Southern Hemisphere in this entire episode.
We talked about that we didn't want to be anywhere near a rainforest, but
maybe we'll go. Maybe we can go to
down
Australia.
under.
Yeah,
maybe
we can go to Sydney, but nowhere else, because then you go anywhere west in Australia, and again you're running into the situation where like everything wants to kill you again.
Yeah, I don't want to go there at all.
I'm not looking to die.
That's another place that I don't want to go, honestly. If someone's paying for it, I'll go, but I don't.
I mean, and there are other places in Australia that would be fun to visit. That's not just Sydney. Perth seems like a cool city. I don't know. There's places, but there's so many places that I want to go, and who knows in this lifetime if I will get to experience all of them. So that's to go back to last week's episode. As far as, like your afterlife, what you're able to do, I think it would be cool to just fucking float around and see the world a little bit too. Maybe if I don't know, if there's an afterlife, like let me fucking do shit like that on my Tuesdays. I'll balance it out between visiting my great descendants and seeing some of the world that I still haven't seen.
I mean, we don't need to wait till we die to do that. I literally floated around on Google Earth the other day and did that to just a few.
Were you doing
spots.
that because I had downloaded Google Earth for Margot the other day, and she was just visiting everywhere that she could think of.
Yeah, me and her, we were just looking at her tablet and just like blowing our minds. Like we were just like floating around, and she would be like, "Show me Scotland, show me," like she was just naming all the places that I talk about basically. So we were just going around and just zooming in as much as we could and getting these like aerial bird's eye views of these cities, and I was like, this is super cool.
So did I tell you where that whole thing started?
What whole thing?
The whole Google Earth thing with Margot the other day.
No.
She wanted to see, she said to me, she said, if we moved to Holland, Michigan, what would my school look like? And we were looking at 3D aerial images on Google Earth.
Oh my gosh.
Of elementary schools in Holland, Michigan.
So what was did she like them?
Oh, she was like, that kind of just looks like my school. And I was like,
there you go.
Yeah.
It's all the same.
It's all the same.
Yep.
Just slightly colder, but better air quality. And there's a beach.
Yeah, I started showing her in depth the Outlander tour that I wanted to do. And I kind of lost her and her eyes glazed over. And she's just like, yeah. Yeah. So maybe that's not a trip that she would like to go on.
No, she's, I think her, if Margot were to pick a place, I feel like it would end up being Japan.
For sure. Yeah.
What about Milo? Let's end it on that. Like, where do you think Milo realistically, like I think he wants to go, like right now, he would just want to go to New York City. I don't think so. Yeah.
If you ask him right now, he's going to say one of two things: New York City, where Spider-Man is, or Mario World. Those are going to be the two things that he would say. We can go
to Universal Tokyo.
He's all about the like experiences, like whatever honestly, I'm about to just describe myself because I think he does the same thing that I do. Whatever he's into at the time, or like whatever movie or book or whatever characters that he's into, he's so immersed in that world, and he wants to dress like that. He wants to go wherever they go. I am exactly like that. I kind of laugh at him for being so immersed, but how is that any different than me? Like, I just talked about dressing up like Rachel Weisz from The Mummy and going to Egypt and riding a camel. I'm the same
and also
person.
going to the Standing Stones in Inverness. Craig Nadoon.
Drinking my whiskey and like wearing a flowing dress. Yeah. And we are the same. Like, I can't deny this kid.
I hope for your sake that you're able to travel back in time and find your Sam Heughan. I'll just be...
I'm looking for Brendan Fraser.
Current Brendan Fraser, like whale Brendan Fraser?
Not
or
whale.
Mummy Brendan Fraser.
Mummy Brendan Fraser.
There's also something very endearing about current Brendan Fraser.
Oh, he's a national treasure.
He sure is. Not like Nicolas Cage is a national treasure.
That's a whole other national treasure.
That's a whole other episode. I don't know, maybe we'll talk Nicolas Cage maybe someday. But yeah, unless you have anything else that you want to talk about travel wise, or
I'm excited for the goal we set. Did we say before 2024 is over?
Travel internationally. And fuck, I've got a Charlie horse, so we're ending this one. I am one of your hosts, Justin Tyler.
And I'm Kandace Tyler.
Thank you for listening to the Cuffle Podcast. Ow.